1978, writer, director, and composer John Carpenter, along with his co-writer Deborah Hill, producer Irwin Yablans, and financier Mustafa Akkad, released what is considered to be one of the greatest and most influential horror films of all time, Halloween. Taking place on the titular holiday, the film follows the murderous Michael Myers, who escapes from a mental hospital and returns to his hometown of Haddonfield 15 years after he murdered his sister. Setting his sights on teenage heroine Laurie and her friends, Michael is hell-bent on continuing the murder spree he began 15 years before. The only one who seems to be doing anything about Michael is his psychiatrist, Dr. Loomis, who races to stop his former patient before he kills more people. Halloween was a game-changer in regards to horror films. It was the first modern slasher movie that would eventually inspire a never-ending string of imitators, and its great financial and critical success proved that horror films could be profitable. As is usually the case with successful films, Halloween spawned a sequel that would hit theaters 3 years later, called Halloween 2. Picking up exactly where the previous film left off, the sequel begins with Dr. Loomis shooting Michael Myers 6 times in the chest, with the latter falling out of a second-floor window. But that's only the start of the evening. With Michael still on the loose, Dr. Loomis goes back on the hunt while Laurie is being transported to the hospital to recover. Michael slowly makes his way to the hospital to finish off Laurie, while Dr. Loomis discovers the shocking truth behind Michael's pursuit of Laurie, and it all comes together in a very explosive finale where not everyone will be walking away. While it received a lukewarm reception compared to the original film, Halloween 2 is undisputedly a fan favorite of the entire franchise and is regarded by some as one of the best horror sequels of all time. But recently, I learned that Halloween 2 also has the unfortunate distinction of being used as part of an insanity defense by a man who committed a truly brutal crime that is much more frightening than any horror film. The date was December 7th, 1982. The place was Fullerton, California. Elderly married couple Francis and Eileen Harbitz were enjoying their evening when someone broke into their home and attacked them in a violent frenzy. The couple were brutally stabbed to death, Francis over 24 times and Eileen over 19 times. Initially, the police had 0 leads, but they caught a lucky break when Francis and Eileen's son tipped them off to a potential suspect. That suspect was one Richard Delmer Boyer, a handyman from Elmont, California. Boyer was brought in for questioning, and after a lengthy interrogation, the police were actually satisfied he had nothing to do with it and were about to release him when all of a sudden, Boyer confessed to the crime. During the subsequent trial, the defense put forth that Boyer was a drug addict and was prone to hallucinations. The initial trial ended in a hung jury, so in 1984 he was tried again. This time, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. In 1989, the California Supreme Court ordered another retrial, citing that Boyer was denied the use of his Miranda rights. Once again, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. In 1992, he was retried for the 4th time and was once again found guilty and sentenced to death. Now here's where I'm going to relate the connection to Halloween 2, and bear with me, it's a head-scratcher. During the 1984 trial and subsequent appeals, Boyer's lawyers made the argument that the murder of Francis and Eileen Harbitz was the result of Boyer watching Halloween 2 while he was inebriated on PCP, marijuana, and alcohol. A psychopharmacologist working for the defense testified that watching the film while under the influence traumatized Boyer to the extent that he committed the murders in a trance where he believed he was simply reenacting a murder scene from the film. This statement caught the attention of a lot of public groups who demanded a renewed call to ban horror films, claiming that they had a negative effect on the people who watched them. In response to this, the jury was allowed to watch Halloween 2. This would actually be the first time in American history that a commercial motion picture would be submitted as evidence in a murder trial. While the jury watched the film, and while they did see some similarities between the Harbitz murders and a scene involving Michael sneaking into the home of an elderly couple to steal a knife, they felt it was highly unlikely that it drove Boyer to kill, considering that it's over a 40-minute drive from Elmont, where he lived, to Fullerton, where he committed the murders, hinting that the murders were likely premeditated for some still unknown reason. In the aftermath of the guilty verdict, a lot of moral critics did an about-face and came to the defense of not only Halloween 2, but horror films in general. One such critic named Thomas M. Sipos had this to say on the matter, quote, It would be silly, after all, to ban horror films just because Boyer claims to have thought that he was reenacting Halloween 2, or to ban cars because Texas housewife Clara Harris intentionally ran down and killed her husband. Nor does it make sense to ban otherwise useful items such as drugs or guns just because some individuals misuse them." Unquote. After the 1992 retrial where his death sentence was upheld, Richard Delmer Boyer was sent to San Quentin State Prison, where he sits on death row to this very day. So what are we to conclude from the story of the Halloween 2 murders? Could Boyer have actually killed 2 people because of short-term mania brought on by watching a horror movie? Or was he just a cold-blooded murderer making up an excuse to avoid the death penalty? Well, my thoughts on the matter can be summed up with a quote from Wes Craven's Scream. Quote, "Movies don't create psychos. Movies just make psychos more creative." Unquote. If you like this video, please show your support by dropping a comment below, hitting the like button, and sharing it with your friends. If you're curious about my future content and want to hear more creepy tales, then please subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you'll be notified when I upload something new. Until next time, have a lovely day, stay safe out there, and most importantly,
stay creepy.